Great to have you along for the ride. Thanks a lot for stopping by. Glad to have this young lady back. She's the Southwest Correspondent from News Nation. It's Allie Bradley. Allie, how are you? Good to see you.
Hey, doing well. Just hanging out down here in lovely Del Rio on a lovely day. It's been really windy down here, Joe,
Yeah.
but we've got the wall here. We're doing some live shots down here. See what's going on, in the area because there's never a dull moment.
I used to have great hair, and we talked about this right before we started the interview. Your hair looks amazing, and you said the trick is stand out in the wind along the border. Is that what does that to your hair?
That's the trick apparently. Like it's Mariah Carey's, fan that she brings
Right.
along with her, but it's nature. So somehow while I'm on air, it looks terrible. But right now it's working in my favor because I'm in the confines of the car. So
Well, we talked about this last time. The actual way that you do your job, I think you're second to none when it comes to the border and anything else that you're working on. I just think that you do a great job because you throw your entire self into it. How many hours a day when you're working? Are you 7 hours, 8, 10 hours at the border? How many hours a day are you in and out of the car doing live shots, doing reporting, doing packages? It's got to be a mammoth thing that you do. And you're doing it, what, 6 days a week, something like that?
I mean, I think I work 24/7 at this point
Yeah.
because the importance of communicating with my sources is the priority. And if they reach out to me on a Sunday, I'm going to answer. If it's important to them,
Right.
they might lose their job by talking to me. I'm going to prioritize that conversation. And being a voice for those that don't have one right now, what an honor.
Right.
But for some perspective, yesterday I think I left the house at 7 a.m. and I got home at 11 p.m.
Wow.
That's full working. We did our live shots all day. We get up, we write our scripts and do everything and get our shots together. We might have to gather some information, do some interviews, do our live shots, and then from there we've got to get ready for the next day. So we were out hours away, out in a ranch yesterday working, until 10 p.m. or so, and then had to do the drive home. So I say it's all the time, and I choose to do it. So it's an
Right.
honor to be able to be down here and telling the truth when there's a lot of people that aren't.
And you do it incredibly well. I'm going to leave it on the shot of just you because you're showing us the big, beautiful wall right now. I mean, that is the wall over your left shoulder. Is that wall that Trump built? Was that already pre-existing? Fill me in on what we're looking at here.
Do I need to get out of the car again, Joe Pags?
Allie, get out of the car. What's the matter with you? Why are you in the car?
Let's play this game again. You notice how the wall stops?
Right. Yeah.
You see
Yeah.
that?
Wow.
So this is the Trump wall, you guys. This is the Trump wall. It's about 30 feet high. See that black one right there?
Yes.
And that's our live shot setup right here. See that
Okay.
black one? That's the
Yes.
Bush wall. Okay.
Oh,
So
wow.
what's really interesting here, I'm going to walk you over here. The sheriff is actually really frustrated here because the Bush wall was where the Trump wall currently is. And you
Okay.
see there's just chicken wire now, basically separating that because they moved the Bush wall back. It is so unstable right now, Pags. It's being held up by single bars of rebar
Oh, wow.
and steel. Look at this. So the sheriff is ticked off because this is so unstable now because they didn't finish the wall. I mean, the wall ends right there. So this is a Bush wall. This is a chain link fencing, and it's tamped down because they're climbing over it, but it's unstable. It is not reliable. It's not an actual barrier anymore. And so the sheriff, he did say he'd rather just have the Bush wall there than have this situation that got interrupted, as we know. The structure building it was halted on day one of the Biden administration. So,
Well, Allie, let me ask you this. Where you're standing, is that where they had all the materials that were stacked up and now they sold it off or something? Did they have the material to finish the wall? They just didn't do it?
I mean, there are materials to finish the wall everywhere along the southern border. There aren't big stacks of that down here in Del Rio. I'm just on the outside of where the Haitian crisis took place, where that international bridge is. So we're just outside of that. So there's not a bunch of wall materials that have been abandoned out here. I've never seen any stacks of wall materials in the Del Rio, right along the wall here. But we do see that in other areas along the southern border. There are massive piles in Yuma, in Sierra Vista, in other parts of Texas. I know also in the Rio Grande Valley that's happening as well. So, but it's just fragmented, as you can see. I mean, it's just a piece of a wall there. There's a piece of the wall there, and then it goes down. There's another piece of the wall. So it's not completed in the Del Rio area whatsoever.
It's Allie Bradley. She's live right there at the wall between Mexico and the United States, and incredible coverage as always. I've got to ask you, because you know this way better than I do, if the sheriff wanted to, could he hire contractors to finish the wall, or is that completely federal and he can't do anything?
Ooh, good question. I'm not sure. I mean, Governor Greg Abbott is doing his own thing and taking matters into his own hands and building the wall there. Full disclosure, the sheriff here is a Democrat. I kind of tease him and tell him he's a blue dog Democrat because he
Yeah,
would not be a Democrat in Seattle.
right,
But he, by way of him taking that matter into his own hands, I just don't think it's a priority for him. They don't have a ton of crossings down here in Del Rio anymore, Joe.
right.
They have shifted, as you know, to the Eagle Pass area, same sector. It's both the Del Rio sector, but you're not seeing the thousands of people streaming across the river like we saw with Bill Mallusion 3 years ago while he was
Right.
standing out there on Vega Verde Road and people are walking behind him. That's not happening out here. It hasn't happened basically since that Haitian crisis.
Yeah.
Everything shifted. So he hasn't really had a reason to advocate to fix it, and
Yeah.
again, it would be county money most likely, or Governor Abbott would have to have the desire to do that. And right now there is a form of a barrier here where a lot of the border in Texas doesn't have anything. So they're probably kind of not prioritizing this area right now.
It's Allie Bradley, News Nation Southwest Correspondent, great friend of ours and an incredible reporter. So we haven't spoken, not on the air anyway, but we've texted back and forth since the visit by both the current president and the previous president. The current president goes to Brownsville, where 0 are crossing every day. The previous president went to Shelby Park, where you've got all the razor wire in Texas, closing things down. I don't know what the flow is around Shelby Park, but into it, none, because of what Texas did. What can you report since then? And it was only a week or so ago. Since then, has anything changed? Was it just a photo op? As a reporter, how did you see their visits?
Their visits, I will say I expected more conversations about solutions and
Right.
less kind of finger pointing. I mean, I understand they're both campaigning and they're both in the thick of that. But, even talking to my mom, she was like, dang it, I really just wanted to hear how to fix this. I really wanted to see how to move forward, not just go down there and kind of sling mud. And that's kind of how it felt to a lot of people on the ground too, and it takes time, resources, all the things. Like everyone's like, oh, thank you, Mr. Trump, for coming. Oh, thank you, Mr. Biden, for coming. All of those people weren't able to do their job that day. None of them. They
Oh,
were all
wow.
down there
That's a
babysitting,
good point.
basically.
Yeah.
So they want to be working. They don't care about the photo ops. They're over it. They're sick of it. They, nothing is changing. Nothing has changed either, Joe, since either one of these visits.
Right.
The Rio Grande Valley sector where Joe Biden was, that is seeing a little bit of an increase. I haven't seen the Brownsville specific numbers, but
Yeah.
the Rio Grande Valley is about comparable to what the Del Rio sector is right now. We are still seeing people stream into the Eagle Pass area just outside. It's a place called Normandy
Right.
and also Quemado. They're actually expanding Operation Lone Star into those areas. We're covering a story on this next week about the Florida National Guard kind of down there chipping in. We got some exclusive access, so we're going to be showing some of that expansion and talking about what phase they're in their plan now. I mean, they're willing and able and prepared to go as far as they need to go. You talk about, has anything changed? Today apparently marks 3 years since Operation Lone Star was created under Governor Abbott because he
Right.
claims that the federal government isn't doing anything. So what's changed is Operation Lone Star continues to grow despite legal challenges and frustrations from the federal government. Really, that's the only thing that we've seen shift. And of course, we've seen more people show up in the Tucson sector.
Right.
Path of least resistance is a pretty clear sign there.
Well, that was the next question for Allie Bradley, News Nation. Go follow her, Allie Bradley TV, over on all the social media. ALI Bradley TV. The question was going to be, and you just kind of answered it, because of what Texas is doing, whether the feds like it or not, and it's still in the courts, so we're not sure if this is going to be legal constitutionally. But because of what Texas is doing, are they going nuts in Arizona? Are they going nuts in New Mexico and California? Because we are seeing lower numbers in Texas now. Clearly, as you said, the path of least resistance is what people want to do when they're breaking the law.
Yeah, I mean, there's no river in Arizona. It was cold here for quite a while, right?
Right.
You don't have a governor who's literally sealing up the border like Fort Knox. So, it's just easier. And you also have a bigger dog when it comes to the cartel over there that wants the money and wants to control the flow. Sinaloa is running kind of the southwestern corridor. So that's what we're seeing more and more of. But when it comes to the shift in people, we're still seeing nearly 7,000 people yesterday. The 6 days prior, we saw over 7,000 people every day. So they're going somewhere, right? Well, for the most part, they're going to the Tucson sector is the
Right.
leading sector right now. El Paso sector is actually picking up. That does include New Mexico as well, and Santa Teresa, which we know that there have been issues there as well. And then in San Diego, that is kind of competing with El Paso right now by
Right.
way of encounters and things like that. So we are seeing that shift, and we reported on that months ago. As soon as we first saw Shelby Park, the seizure of that park, we talked with Governor Abbott's border czar Mike Banks, and he basically, that was kind of the speculation then. Well, we're kicking them out of here. Don't care where they go. They just can't, seats taken. Can't sit here. It's like, don't care where you go, but you can't stay at this location. So,
Right.
and I've talked to them a little bit, like, don't you care about all of America? And they're like, well, we got to protect Texas and Texans. And, if the federal government isn't going to step in, these people are going to keep pushing west. And, the likelihood, though, that they're going to come back to Texas is not out of the question, because Texas is the biggest landmass along the southern border. You can't cut off a 30, what is the cartel making? $13 billion a year. You're not going to cut off that industry. So they have to be able to get in. So, right now it is, I think, the path of least resistance. But again, El Paso is starting to see a little bit of an uptick. There is not a massive barrier set up like what they have in Eagle Pass. Now, there is some. We've been down there as well. The Texas military does have some concertina wire and barriers, but it's not fortified like Shelby Park. So El Paso, I would imagine they'll probably be eyeing El Paso for some fortification here soon.
It's Allie Bradley, News Nation, Southwest Correspondent, great friend of mine, incredible reporter. Here's the question I've always had, and I know that you know the answer because you're there every single freaking day. Why are they trying to cross away from a port of entry? Biden's DHS is literally saying, come on, we'll give you asylum. We'll have you sign up for the app that's online. We'll have you get parole for a while. We'll give you a court date 6-7 years down the line. Why is anybody trying to cross away from a port of entry where they're being welcomed basically by the feds?
Yeah, there's a couple of reasons why, what I've been able to kind of gather down here. So number one, a lot of them will have CBP-1 appointments confirmed, and I find discarded confirmations on the ground. Instead of crossing, say they have a confirmation to cross in Nogales, they instead cross in Lukeville, and they're not using that CBP-1 app. Now, some of them say they were in Mexico, they were waiting for a month, they didn't want to wait any longer. Some of them say the CBP-1 app did not work for them at all. So those are factors, right? The other factor is maybe the cartel is saying this is where you're going to cross, because is the cartel making money off of CBP-1 app people? I'm not sure, but are they making money off people who have to go through the river? Yes. So if the cartel can pluck them even from a line, or, they're sitting there playing on their phone, no, you're not going to do CBP-1 app, you're going to go this way, because again, you can't stop a $13 billion a year industry. They were making $32 million a week pushing people across in Del Rio. So you think that they're just like, go ahead and cross at the port of entry. That cuts in to their money. That cuts into the bottom line for the cartel.
And they have to listen to the cartel until they get into our custody or into our country. It's a point I did not think about. The cartel literally is telling them, you do what I say or else you're not going to go.
And not only that, but it's like, if you might not want to do what we say, but we know who you're traveling with. We know your mom. We've got probably a picture of your license or your passport. We got grandma. We got your tío down in Venezuela. That's why they're like indentured servants once they get here too, because a lot of them, you think they have $8,000 to just give them out of pocket? I don't have $8,000 to give to somebody. So, they kind of end up, in these situations once they're in the United States, kind of with the cartel still hanging over their head. Now, the third and final option of why they're not crossing at a port is because they have criminal history or they know they're going to be removed. Right. We saw this a lot more often when Title 42 was in place, because people were being removed under Title 42 expeditiously. It didn't really matter. There were certain stipulations, of course, but there was the threat that you'd be returned under Title 42. So you had a lot more people trying to evade because they were scared they were going to get kicked back. Now it's interesting because you're like, okay, this has nothing to do with you're going to get kicked back under Title 42. So you're just trying to evade because you probably have criminal history. Yeah. But again, we don't know what the conversations are with the cartel. I always try to, see this from all perspectives, because even if they want to cross at the river and the cartel's like, nah, you're going to go this way because you don't have the money to cross at the river, and we're going to smuggle you in a car and you're going to have to walk across a ranch and do all this stuff. It's not the most opportune situation, but you only have $2,000. That's where you're going. Wow. I don't know, Joe, but we have to consider those things too. We can't just say, well, they're all criminals. They're coming in illegally. I understand that. But I mean, in the way of they are trying to evade because they have criminal history. We don't know what those conversations are like. So we do have to be reasonable there.
Well, no, I think that's amazing because I got to tell you something. I did not think about the idea that the cartel is actually telling them, "Don't go across that bridge. That's right there. Go through this razor wire because that's more beneficial to me, the cartel member." That was a great point. I didn't think about it. It's Allie Bradley. Follow her everywhere. Allie Bradley TV. She's a great follow on Instagram, also on TikTok, also on X, and go and follow everything she does. Quick question about the difference in policy. And you know, I'm not going to ask you about policy and which side you're on, but here are the facts. Trump wants to put all the executive orders back in place because what he did, he says, worked. And we know by the numbers it worked. Mathematically, it worked much better. Biden wants to throw a bunch of money, billions of dollars at it. And I wonder, with your reporting at the border every day, 24 hours a day, basically, what are you hearing from the Border Patrol? What are you hearing from the sheriffs? What are you hearing from the local residents? Do they prefer one or the other? Or don't they have a preference? Just fix it.
I mean, it's just fix it for sure. But at the end of the day, they always go back to the rules are there, the laws are there, Title 8 is there. You know, you guys threatened everybody with this really scary Title 8 thing. If you come in between the ports of entry, you're going to be ineligible for 5 years. You're going to pay a $5,000 fine, yada, yada, yada. That never happened. I have not seen one person who has had that hanging over them, that they can't come back for 5 years because they were Title 8'd out of the country. So that's interesting, you know, to kind of wrap your head around that one. But at the end of the day, they don't want more money for processing people. They don't necessarily want more agents for processing people because they want the flow to slow down and stop. So they don't need more agents. They want the policies in place to cut off the magnets so that people aren't coming at all. That's
Makes
what
sense.
they would like. So, you know, that's kind of the reality down here. But when it comes to these executive orders and things like that, we know that President Biden rescinded 8 of them, I believe, on day one.
Yes.
But here's the thing, you know, the president is saying, and I don't pick sides. I try very hard to stay neutral because this is an important conversation to have with everyone. But we have to be fair and real. The president literally says, I don't have the authority to send more forces to the border. Pegs, I think a lot of people don't understand that there are National Guard that have been deployed down here for years under the DOD. He has forces down here. He could deploy more forces down here. Those forces could be deterrents. Yes, they can't put hands on migrants, but you can stand there. You can stop the cartel from cutting the wall.
Of course.
You can stand here and be a deterrent. They're not doing that. They had actually under Trump, I believe in 2018, he created a program where he surged 2,500 National Guard troops down to the border. They upped that to around 4,000. Biden came in, kept that program, reduced it down to 25, but just this last year, up to 4,000 again. So he does have the authority and the ability to do that. He's just kind of saying something different to the media, and people are grabbing onto it and believing it. And I'm like, well, that's not necessarily true because we have Texas National Guard down here. Yes, we have Florida National Guard. Those are different. We've got Virginia Guard under DOD down here. That is not Governor Abbott. That is the president. So people need to understand that what he's saying is not necessarily accurate.
Well, he wants the legislation, and he's going to say and do anything that he can do to get that done, and that's what he keeps pushing. Allie, incredible reporting as always. We're frankly out of time. Thank you for doing the walk and talk again. People loved that last time, and just to get that sort of firsthand view of exactly what's going on down there. I had no idea there were 3 different sections of fence, and that they're not finishing the wall because this guy's in or that guy's out, or the materials are this, and the whole scene that you just showed us is something I think most of my listeners and viewers have never, ever heard nor seen before, and I always appreciate you doing it for us. Allie, thank you very much.
Thank you, Pags. I appreciate it always.
All right, have a great weekend. We're back after this in the Joe Pags Show. Stay right here.